A dog wouldn't stop hugging a paralyzed baby. At first, the parents thought it was sweet, until the cuddles became constant. Day and night, he wouldn't move, not even to eat. Every time the doctor came near their daughter, the dog grew restless, furious. And then one day, he lunged. What seemed like loyal affection was something far more terrifying. And when the parents finally realized the truth behind his desperate hugs, they made a chilling discovery that left them no choice but to call 911. What was this dog trying to protect their baby from, and why was no one else seeing it? You being here is a reminder. The quiet acts of love and kindness still matter. If you hold space for compassion, you're already part of this community. The autumn breeze rustled through the colorful leaves as Delilah Brennan carefully lifted her baby daughter from the car seat. 6-month-old Celia's tiny fingers curled around her mother's thumb, bringing tears to Delilah's eyes. After 3 long months in the hospital, they were finally bringing their little girl home. "Here we are, sweetheart," Delilah whispered, cradling Celia close to her chest. "Welcome home." Marcus Brennan grabbed the diaper bag and medical supplies from the trunk, his weathered hands gentle despite their strength. "Let me get the door for my 2 favorite ladies," he said with a warm smile that couldn't quite hide the worry in his eyes. Inside their modest ranch-style home, everything had been carefully prepared for Celia's arrival. The living room now housed a hospital-grade crib and changing station, while colorful mobiles hung from the ceiling. Delilah's nursing experience had helped them arrange everything perfectly for a child with special needs. "The nursery looks amazing," Marcus said, setting down their bags. "You thought of everything, Del." Delilah settled into the cushioned rocking chair, adjusting Celia's position to support her fragile spine. "I just want everything to be perfect for her." She traced her finger along Celia's cheek, marveling at her daughter's bright blue eyes and rosebud mouth. The spina bifida may have paralyzed her legs, but she's still our perfect little miracle. Marcus knelt beside them, his large hand covering Celia's tiny feet. "And she's got the strongest mom in the world to help her through this." He paused, pulling out his phone. "Speaking of help, I got a call from the military working dog adoption agency. They found a match for us." Delilah's eyes lit up. "Really? Tell me everything." "His name is Ranger," Marcus explained, showing her pictures of a distinguished-looking German Shepherd. 8 years old, retired from chemical detection work. They say he's incredibly gentle and great with kids. Could be exactly what we were hoping for. A companion for Celia and a little extra security for the house. "He's beautiful," Delilah breathed, studying the dog's intelligent eyes. "When can we meet him?" "They can bring him by tomorrow if we're ready." Marcus squeezed her hand. "What do you think?" "Yes," Delilah said without hesitation. "I have a good feeling about this." The next day brought nervous excitement as they waited for Ranger's arrival. When the adoption coordinator's van pulled up, Delilah watched from the window with Celia in her arms. The German Shepherd that emerged was even more impressive in person. Tall and dignified, with a graying muzzle that spoke of his experience. The coordinator, Sarah, led Ranger up the walkway on a leather leash. "He's been absolutely perfect during his transition training," she explained as they entered, "but we'll still want to do a careful introduction with the baby." Ranger's ears perked forward at the sight of Celia, but he remained perfectly calm. Following Sarah's instructions, Delilah sat on the couch with Celia while Marcus knelt beside them. Sarah slowly brought Ranger closer, letting him take in their scents. The German Shepherd's approach was remarkably gentle. He sniffed carefully at Celia's feet, then looked up at Delilah with what seemed like understanding in his dark eyes. When Celia made a happy gurgling sound, Ranger's tail began to wag slowly. "This is exactly what we want to see," Sarah said, smiling. "He's already showing protective instincts while maintaining perfect control. Would you like to try letting him lie down next to you?" With Sarah's guidance, They spent the next hour getting comfortable with each other. Ranger proved to be everything they'd hoped for: gentle, attentive, and incredibly intuitive about Celia's needs. By the time Sarah left, there was no doubt that Ranger belonged with them. "I can't believe how good he is with her," Marcus said that evening, watching as Ranger lay protectively near Celia's playmat. The dog's eyes never left the baby, but his posture remained relaxed and calm. "It's like he knows she needs extra care," Delilah agreed. She was organizing paperwork for their upcoming appointment with Dr. Vivian Holloway, the physical therapist who would be working with Celia. Dr. Holloway said she's seen amazing results when therapy animals are involved in treatment. "I can't wait to tell her about Ranger." Marcus nodded, though Delilah noticed a slight furrow in his brow. "She seems very confident about Celia's treatment plan." "She's the best in her field," Delilah assured him, understanding his protective instincts. All her references were impeccable, and her success rate with similar cases is remarkable. "She'll be coming twice a week for home sessions." As if sensing their discussion of medical matters, Ranger lifted his head and moved closer to Celia, laying his head near her tiny hand. The baby immediately reached for his fur, making happy noises that filled the room with joy. "Look at that," Delilah whispered, her heart swelling. "They're already bonding." Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Maybe this is the beginning of something really special. Between Dr. Holloway's expertise and Ranger's support, Celia's going to have every chance to thrive." Delilah leaned into her husband's embrace, watching their daughter play with her new protector. Despite the challenges ahead, hope bloomed in her chest. They had assembled a strong support system for their daughter: professional medical care, a loving family, and now a devoted companion in Ranger. The German shepherd looked up at them with his wise eyes, as if making a silent promise to watch over their precious child. In that moment, their home felt complete, a sanctuary where love, dedication, and hope would help their daughter overcome any obstacle in her path. As the evening light filtered through the windows, Delilah could almost picture the future: Celia growing stronger under Dr. Holloway's care, Ranger by her side every step of the way, and their family facing each challenge together. It wasn't the journey they had initially imagined, but with their new extended family, it felt like exactly where they were meant to be. From the moment Ranger settled into their home, it became clear that his attachment to Celia went far beyond typical pet behavior. The German shepherd's military training showed in his disciplined movements and alert posture, but there was something different about the way he watched over the baby. Delilah noticed it first during Celia's morning feeding. Ranger positioned himself directly beside the rocking chair, his dark eyes scanning the room continuously. When Marcus's mother stopped by to meet her granddaughter, Ranger's reaction surprised them all. He immediately placed himself between the visitor and Celia, his body tense and unwavering. "It's okay, Ranger," Delilah soothed, touching his head gently. "This is Grandma Rose." But Ranger wouldn't budge. He allowed Rose to enter the room, but maintained his protective stance, only relaxing slightly when she kept her distance from the baby. "I've never seen anything like it," Marcus said that evening, watching Ranger lying in his now constant position next to Celia's crib. "It's like he's appointed himself her personal bodyguard." Delilah ran her fingers through Ranger's fur, earning a brief tail wag, though his eyes never left Celia. The adoption coordinator mentioned his extensive training in detecting threats. Maybe he's just applying those instincts to protecting her. "But he only does it with other people," Marcus pointed out. "He's totally fine when you or I handle her." Their discussion was interrupted by Celia's soft coos. As Delilah lifted her daughter for a diaper change, Ranger followed them to the changing table, maintaining his vigilant watch. The true test of Ranger's unusual behavior came the next morning, during Dr. Holloway's first home therapy session. The physical therapist arrived precisely on time, her blonde hair perfectly styled and her designer outfit spotless despite the early hour. "Good morning," Dr. Holloway called out cheerfully, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "And who do we have here?" Ranger's reaction was immediate and intense. The normally composed dog began pacing between Dr. Holloway and Celia's playmat, his whines filling the room with an anxious energy. "Ranger, settle!" Marcus commanded firmly, but the German Shepherd continued his agitated movement. Dr. Holloway's professional smile wavered slightly. "I wasn't aware you had a dog. Is he always this reactive?" "He's usually very calm," Delilah explained, trying to soothe both the dog and the growing tension in the room. "He's a retired military working dog, actually. We just adopted him to be a companion for Celia." "How interesting," Dr. Holloway said, though her tone suggested otherwise. She set down her therapy bag and Ranger's whining increased. "Though I have to say this level of anxiety around strangers could be problematic for Celia's treatment plan." Delilah felt her chest tighten. "He's just being protective. He'll adjust." But as Dr. Holloway attempted to approach Celia for her examination, Ranger's behavior escalated. He planted himself firmly over the baby, his body forming a living barrier between her and the therapist. "Marcus, could you please take him to another room?" Delilah asked, her voice strained. "We need Dr. Holloway to be able to work with Celia." Marcus had to practically drag Ranger away, the dog's nails scratching against the floor as he resisted leaving Celia's side. Even from behind the closed door of the master bedroom, they could hear his distressed whimpers. "I hate to say this," Dr. Holloway said as she began Celia's therapy exercises, "but you might want to reconsider having such a highly strung animal around a medically fragile child. The stress alone could be detrimental to Celia's progress." Delilah felt tears pricking at her eyes. "He's only been with us a few days. He just needs time to adjust." "Of course," Dr. Holloway replied smoothly, though her expression remained concerned. "But as Celia's medical professional, I have to prioritize her therapeutic needs. A dog with such intense protective instincts might interfere with her treatment plan." After Dr. Holloway left, Delilah and Marcus released Ranger from the bedroom. The German Shepherd immediately rushed to Celia, carefully sniffing her all over as if checking for injuries. "What do you make of all this?" Marcus asked, watching Ranger settle into his guard position. Delilah sat on the floor beside them, her nursing training warring with her emotional attachment to their new family member. "His military background probably makes him extra sensitive to potential threats. Remember, he was trained to detect dangerous substances and protect his handlers." "But Dr. Holloway has a point," Marcus said reluctantly. "If he's going to react like this during every therapy session..." "He just needs time," Delilah insisted, though doubt had begun to creep into her voice. "We can't give up on him so quickly. Look how gentle he is with her." Indeed, Ranger had rested his head near Celia's feet, his eyes alert but his demeanor calm now that Dr. Holloway was gone. When Celia reached out to pat his fur, his tail wagged softly against the floor. "We'll give him more time," Marcus agreed, sitting down beside them. "But we need to figure out why he reacted so strongly to Dr. Holloway. If he does this with all of Celia's medical professionals..." Delilah nodded, watching Ranger maintain his protective vigil over their daughter. The German Shepherd's military training had made him an exceptional guardian, but had it also made him too vigilant? Dr. Holloway's words echoed in her mind, planting seeds of doubt about their decision to bring Ranger into their home. As evening settled over the house, Ranger remained unwavering in his dedication to protecting Celia. His behavior was both touching and concerning, leaving Delilah and Marcus to wonder if their hope for a perfect family companion might have unexpected complications. Over the next few weeks, Ranger's protective behavior grew more intense. The German Shepherd developed a new routine that caught Delilah's attention. Every morning, he would carefully inspect Celia's medical supplies, his trained nose methodically working over each item. "Look at him," Delilah whispered to Marcus one morning, watching as Ranger sniffed Celia's medication bottles lined up on the kitchen counter. "It's like he's doing a security check." Marcus paused with his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Maybe that's exactly what he's doing. Remember, he was trained to detect chemicals in the military. After completing his inspection, Ranger would settle himself next to Celia's playmat, his body curved around her like a protective shield. He stayed there for hours, moving only when Delilah or Marcus needed to tend to their daughter. During Dr. Holloway's third visit, Ranger's reaction was even more dramatic than before. The moment the therapist's car pulled into the driveway, his ears perked up and a low growl rumbled in his chest. "Not again," Marcus sighed, reaching for Ranger's collar. But before he could grab it, the German Shepherd had positioned himself over Celia, his body forming a protective arch above her. Dr. Holloway's heels clicked against the floor as she entered, her professional smile faltering at the sight of Ranger. "I see the dog is still adjusting." "I'm so sorry," Delilah said, moving to help Marcus guide Ranger away. "He's usually such a gentle boy." "I can see that with you," Dr. Holloway replied, watching as Ranger resisted leaving Celia's side. "But this behavior during therapy sessions remains concerning." Once they managed to secure Ranger in the master bedroom, Dr. Holloway's demeanor shifted. She sat down at their kitchen table, her manicured fingers smoothing out a stack of papers. "Actually, I wanted to discuss something exciting with you both today," she said, her voice taking on an enthusiastic tone. "I've been selected to participate in a groundbreaking research study, and I believe Celia would be a perfect candidate." Delilah leaned forward, hope flickering in her chest. "What kind of study?" "It's an experimental treatment that could potentially improve muscle development in children with spina bifida," Dr. Holloway explained, her eyes bright. "The preliminary results have been incredibly promising." Marcus shifted in his chair, his construction worker's hands folded tightly on the table. "Experimental? Has it been properly tested?" "That's what this study is for," Dr. Holloway replied smoothly. "We're in the final testing phases, and the potential benefits are remarkable. Some children have shown significant improvements in muscle response." From the bedroom, they could hear Ranger's anxious whining growing louder. "I don't know," Marcus said, his voice heavy with doubt. "Using experimental treatments on our 6-month-old daughter seems risky." Dr. Holloway's expression shifted subtly, her professional mask giving way to something that looked almost like disappointment. "I understand your concern, Mr. Brennan. Every parent wants to protect their child." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But sometimes protecting them means being brave enough to try new treatments that could change their lives." Delilah felt tears welling up in her eyes. Could it really help her? "The potential is there, Doctor," Holloway said softly, reaching across the table to pat Delilah's hand. "As medical professionals, you and I both know how rare these opportunities are. Don't you want to give Celia every possible chance at improvement?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Of course we want what's best for her, but—" "I know it's a lot to process, Doctor," Holloway interrupted gently. "But as Celia's doctor, I wouldn't suggest this if I didn't believe in its potential. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from being willing to try new approaches." Ranger's whining had turned to urgent barking, making it hard to think clearly. Delilah found herself torn between her husband's practical concerns and Dr. Holloway's compelling arguments. As a nurse, she understood the importance of medical advancement, but as a mother, every protective instinct made her want to proceed with caution. "The study includes a significant grant to cover all medical expenses," Dr. Holloway added, her voice careful and measured. It would mean no out-of-pocket costs for any of Celia's treatments during the trial period. Marcus and Delilah exchanged glances. They hadn't discussed it openly, but the mounting medical bills had been causing strain on their budget. "Could we have some time to think about it?" Delilah asked, her voice wavering slightly. "Of course," Dr. Holloway smiled, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Here's all the information about the study. But I should mention that spaces are limited, and I'd need your decision within the week to secure Celia's spot." After Dr. Holloway left, they released Ranger from the bedroom. The German Shepherd burst out and made a beeline for Celia, thoroughly sniffing her before lying across her legs, his eyes fixed on the door where Dr. Holloway had exited. "What do you think?" Delilah asked Marcus, watching Ranger's protective display. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his gesture. "I don't like it. Something about rushing into an experimental treatment doesn't sit right with me. But if it could help her..." Delilah's voice trailed off as she looked at their daughter, happily playing with her toys, unaware of the weight of the decision before them. "Dr. Holloway's right about one thing," Marcus said quietly. "We do want the best for her. I just wish I knew what that was." Ranger lifted his head at the sound of Dr. Holloway's name, a low whine escaping his throat. His continued distress around the doctor nagged at Delilah's thoughts, making her question everything she thought she knew about their trusted specialist. The afternoon light filtered through the windows as they sat in silence, watching their daughter play under Ranger's watchful eye. The decision before them felt impossible. Trust their respected doctor's recommendation, or listen to their growing doubts, amplified by their protective dog's strange behavior. The following week, Dr. Holloway arrived with a thick binder tucked under her arm. Her polished appearance seemed even more deliberate than usual, from her perfectly pressed blazer to her gleaming pearl earrings. "I brought some additional research materials I thought you'd want to see," she announced, spreading colorful charts across their kitchen table. "The results are truly remarkable." Ranger immediately took his protective stance near Celia's playmat, his dark eyes tracking Dr. Holloway's every movement. "These graphs show muscle response improvements in children similar to Celia," Dr. Holloway explained, pointing to rising lines on various charts. "And here are testimonials from other families in the study." Delilah leaned forward, reading handwritten notes from parents describing miraculous progress in their children's mobility. Her heart squeezed with hope as she imagined similar improvements for Celia. Marcus stood at the edge of the table, arms crossed. "How do we know these testimonials are real? Could we talk to any of these families directly?" Dr. Holloway's smile tightened slightly. "Due to privacy regulations, I can't share their contact information, but I can assure you these are genuine experiences." "Convenient," Marcus muttered. "Marcus," Delilah said softly, shooting him a pleading look. Dr. Holloway turned to Delilah, her voice gentle but pointed. "As a nurse, you understand how rare opportunities like this are. Every day we wait is a day of potential progress lost." The guilt hit Delilah like a physical blow. Was she failing her daughter by hesitating? Ranger suddenly stood, hackles rising as Dr. Holloway reached into her medical bag. The German Shepherd's muscles tensed as she withdrew a small bottle. "This is one of the compounds we're using," Dr. Holloway began. But before she could continue, Ranger lunged forward. With surprising speed, the dog's head knocked against Dr. Holloway's hand, sending the bottle flying. It clattered across the floor, rolling under the cabinet. "Ranger, no!" Marcus grabbed the dog's collar, pulling him back. Dr. Holloway pressed a hand to her chest, her composure cracking slightly. "This behavior is becoming dangerous. I hate to say it, but I'm genuinely concerned about having him around during treatments." "He's never aggressive with us," Delilah defended, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "Of course not," Dr. Holloway said. But what happens when we're administering crucial medications and he decides to interfere? The risk to Celia is too high. Later that evening, after Dr. Holloway left, the tension in the house was palpable. Ranger had resumed his position next to Celia, but his eyes kept darting to the cabinet where the bottle had rolled. "We need to talk about this," Marcus said, his voice tight with frustration. "Something isn't right." "What isn't right is that we're letting our fear hold us back," Delilah replied, gathering Celia's bedtime supplies. "Dr. Holloway has years of experience. She's trying to help our daughter." "By pressuring us? By suggesting we get rid of Ranger?" Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "Why won't she let us contact other families in the study? Why won't she let us get a second opinion?" "Because there are limited spots." Delilah's voice rose with emotion. "We could lose this chance. Do you want to look back years from now and wonder if we could have done more?" "Of course not." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "But rushing into experimental treatments because we feel guilty? That's not the answer." "Then what is the answer, Marcus?" Tears spilled down Delilah's cheeks. "Should we just accept that our daughter might never walk?" The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Marcus stepped back as if she'd struck him, pain flashing across his face. "That's not fair," he said quietly. "You know I'd do anything for her. But this doesn't feel right. And Ranger, maybe?" Delilah wiped her eyes, hating the words even as she spoke them. "Maybe Dr. Holloway is right about Ranger. We can't risk him interfering with her treatment." Ranger lifted his head at the sound of his name, whining softly. His tail thumped against the floor as he looked between them, sensing their distress. "I can't believe you're even considering that," Marcus said. "That dog has done nothing but protect our daughter since the day he arrived." "Protect her from what?" Delilah demanded. "From her doctor?" "From treatment that could help her." Their argument was interrupted by Celia's soft cry. Both parents moved automatically to comfort her, their personal conflict momentarily forgotten. As Delilah lifted Celia from her playmat, Ranger paced anxiously between them and the cabinet where Dr. Holloway's bottle still lay hidden. His whining grew more insistent. "See?" Marcus gestured to the dog. "He's trying to tell us something. Military dogs like him are trained to detect dangerous substances. What if Dash—" "Stop it," Delilah cut him off. "Just stop. I can't handle conspiracy theories right now. Dr. Holloway is a respected specialist. She's not some kind of— I don't know what you're suggesting." Marcus's jaw tightened. "All I'm saying is that maybe we should trust our instincts and Rangers." "Our instincts?" Delilah laughed bitterly. "My instincts as a nurse tell me we're wasting precious time. My instincts as a mother tell me to do everything possible to help our daughter. What are your instincts telling you, Marcus? To distrust everyone trying to help us." The hurt in Marcus's eyes made her stomach clench, but she couldn't take the words back. The weight of their decision pressed down on her, along with Dr. Holloway's warnings about limited time and lost opportunities. "I need some air," Marcus said quietly, heading for the back door. Ranger looked torn, glancing between Marcus's retreating form and Celia in Delilah's arms. "Go with him," Delilah whispered to the dog. "I've got her." Ranger hesitated, then padded after Marcus, leaving Delilah alone with their daughter and her swirling thoughts. She looked down at Celia's innocent face, her heart aching with the magnitude of their choice. Dr. Holloway's words echoed in her mind. Don't you want to give her every possible chance? Of course they did. But at what cost? The growing rift between her and Marcus felt like a physical pain. She'd never felt so torn between her medical training, which urged her to trust Dr. Holloway's expertise, and her instincts as a wife, which told her to trust her husband's concerns. Through the window, she could see Marcus sitting on their back step, his head in his hands. Ranger sat beside him, pressed against his leg in silent support. The sight brought fresh tears to her eyes. How had they gone from being so united in their hope for Celia's future to this divide that seemed to grow wider with each of Dr. Holloway's visits? The morning of Celia's first experimental treatment arrived with a heavy silence in the Brennan household. Marcus had barely spoken since their argument, his disapproval evident in every rigid movement as he helped prepare Celia for Dr. Holloway's visit. Ranger paced anxiously by the front door, his nails clicking against the hardwood floors. When Dr. Holloway's sleek car pulled into the driveway, the German shepherd's whining grew more intense. "Maybe we should put him in the backyard," Delilah suggested, bouncing Celia gently in her arms. Marcus's jaw tightened. "He stays." Dr. Holloway swept in with her usual polished presence, though Delilah noticed she gave Ranger a wide berth. The doctor's medical bag seemed heavier than usual, filled with bottles and equipment for the new treatment. "I'm so pleased you've decided to move forward, Doctor," Holloway said, setting up her supplies on the kitchen table. "This could be a turning point for Celia." Ranger positioned himself between the doctor and the baby, his body tense. When Dr. Holloway reached for her bag, he growled low in his throat. "Marcus," Delilah pleaded, "please." With visible reluctance, Marcus led Ranger to the corner of the room, keeping a firm hold on his collar. The dog's eyes never left Dr. Holloway's hands as she prepared the first injection. "This might cause some initial discomfort," Dr. Holloway warned as she swabbed Celia's tiny arm. "But the benefits will far outweigh any temporary pain." Celia's cry pierced the air as the needle went in. Ranger lunged forward, nearly pulling free from Marcus's grip. The dog's distress mirrored the tension Delilah felt in her own chest as she held her daughter still. That was only the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Ranger's behavior became increasingly extreme. He refused to eat when Dr. Holloway's medical equipment was present, choosing instead to stand guard over Celia. At night, he pressed himself against her crib, barely sleeping. "He hasn't touched his food again," Marcus noted one morning, worry creasing his forehead. "This isn't normal." Delilah couldn't argue. The once robust German shepherd was looking leaner, his protective vigilance taking a visible toll. But she pushed her concerns aside, focusing instead on Celia's upcoming appointment at Dr. Holloway's clinic. The waiting room was busier than usual that day. Delilah noticed a mother with a child about Celia's age, her face drawn with worry as she paced the floor. "First time here?" Delilah asked, trying to be friendly. The woman shook her head. "3rd month of treatment." She hesitated, then added in a lower voice, "I thought things would be better by now." Something in her tone made Delilah look closer. The woman's child lay listlessly in a specialized wheelchair, eyes half closed. "What do you mean?" "The treatments." The woman glanced around nervously. "They said Tommy would show improvement after 6 weeks, but he seems more tired than ever. And the other day I could have sworn—" "Mrs. Chen?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Holloway will see you now." The woman gathered her son quickly, but not before whispering, "Just watch carefully. Document everything." Delilah tried to dismiss the encounter, but as she waited for her own appointment, she began noticing details she'd overlooked before. A father arguing quietly but intensely with a nurse about his daughter's declining condition. A mother wiping tears from her eyes while filling out forms. Children who seemed unusually subdued. "Mrs. Brennan," Dr. Holloway's voice cut through her observations. "We're ready for you." During Celia's examination, Delilah found herself paying closer attention to the doctor's movements, the way she documented readings, the slight tremor in her hands as she prepared another injection. "The muscle response is exactly what we'd expect at this stage, Doctor," Holloway assured her, though she didn't meet Delilah's eyes while saying it. We'll increase the dosage slightly today. And the fatigue? Delilah asked, thinking of Tommy and the other children she'd seen. Is that normal? Completely expected, Dr. Holloway replied smoothly. The body is adjusting to the treatment. Speaking of adjustments, how is that dog of yours? The abrupt change of subject caught Delilah off guard. Ranger? He's still very protective. Dr. Holloway made a note in Celia's file. And still interfering with treatments? He's not interfering exactly, just watching. Well, we'll need him completely out of the room for our next home visit. The new phase of treatment requires absolute precision. Dr. Holloway's tone left no room for argument. We can't risk any disruptions. On the drive home, Delilah couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her. She thought about the woman in the waiting room, her whispered warning, about Ranger's increasingly desperate behavior, about Marcus's unwavering instinct that something wasn't right. When she walked through their front door, Ranger was waiting. He sniffed Celia thoroughly, his agitation growing as he detected traces of the new medication. For the first time, instead of dismissing his reaction, Delilah really watched him. This wasn't just an overprotective pet. This was a highly trained military dog, one specifically chosen for his ability to detect dangerous substances. And everything about his behavior screamed that he sensed a threat. "What are you trying to tell us?" she whispered, running her hand over his graying muzzle. Ranger whined softly, pressing his nose against Celia's arm where the injection site was still visible. The baby stirred in her sleep, her movements more lethargic than usual. Delilah's nursing training kicked in, and she began mentally cataloging changes she'd observed. Increased fatigue, decreased appetite, subtle changes in muscle tone, things that could be explained by the treatment or by something far more sinister. Marcus found her later that evening, surrounded by Celia's medical records and treatment notes. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "I'm documenting everything," Delilah replied, thinking of the waiting room mother's words. "Every treatment, every reaction, every change." She felt Marcus's hand on her shoulder, solid and supportive. "You're starting to see it too, aren't you?" Delilah covered his hand with her own, tears pricking at her eyes. "I don't want to. I want to believe we're doing the right thing, that she's helping our daughter. But today at the clinic..." She told him about Tommy, about the other parents, about Dr. Holloway's insistence that Ranger be removed from future treatments. With each word, the weight of their situation pressed harder on her chest. "What if you've been right all along?" she whispered. "What if we've been letting her?" A soft cry from Celia interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Both parents moved toward their daughter's room, Ranger already there, standing guard as always. Looking down at their baby girl, Delilah felt fear and determination war in her heart. Something was wrong. Her instincts as a mother and her training as a nurse were finally aligning with her husband's suspicions and Ranger's warnings. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Delilah couldn't shake the image of Tommy Chen's listless form from her mind. After that day at the clinic, she began noticing more concerning details during her own shifts at the pediatric ward. Small things at first: whispered conversations between nurses about Dr. Holloway's patients, worried parents asking for second opinions, medical charts showing puzzling declines. One quiet afternoon, while updating patient records, she overheard two nurses discussing another family under Dr. Holloway's care. "The Williams baby was doing so well before the experimental treatment," one nurse whispered. "Now they're talking about permanent respiratory support." "Just like the Martinez case last month," the other replied. "Same pattern, rapid decline after starting the new protocol." Delilah's hands froze over her keyboard. She remembered the Martinez family. Their daughter had been born with similar complications to Celia's. They'd transferred to another hospital suddenly, with no explanation. That evening, she stayed late at work, using her hospital access to carefully review records. What she found made her stomach churn. Both the Williams and Martinez children had shown identical patterns. Initial stability followed by sudden deterioration after beginning Dr. Holloway's experimental treatments. At home, Ranger's condition was becoming critical. The once robust German Shepherd refused to move from his post beside Celia's crib, even for meals. His ribs were becoming visible beneath his thick coat. "Here, boy," Delilah whispered, bringing him water and treats. She had to place them right next to him. He wouldn't step away from the crib even to eat. His dark eyes, though tired, remained alert and focused on the baby. Marcus found her there one evening, watching Ranger nibble listlessly at a treat while maintaining his guard position. "This has to stop," he said firmly. "Look at him. He's killing himself trying to protect her." Delilah nodded, tears threatening. "I know. But Marcus, I think he might be right. I've been looking into some things at work." She told him about the Williams and Martinez cases, about the patterns she discovered. With each detail, Marcus's expression grew darker. "I want answers," he declared, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling Holloway right now." "Wait!" Delilah grabbed his arm. "We need to be careful. If something's really wrong with these treatments, confronting her directly might make things worse. Worse than watching our dog starve himself? Worse than wondering what she's really giving our daughter?" Marcus's voice cracked with emotion. Before Delilah could respond, Celia began fussing in her crib. As they moved to comfort her, Ranger struggled to his feet, swaying slightly from weakness, but still positioning himself protectively between them and the baby. "Oh, Ranger," Delilah whispered, reaching out to stroke his graying muzzle. "What do you know that we don't?" The next day, Delilah reached out to a former colleague who had transferred to the hospital where the Martinez family had gone. Sarah had always been good at getting information others couldn't. "The Martinez case?" Sarah's voice was cautious over the phone. "That's complicated. They're claiming medical negligence, but everything's being kept very quiet. Legal teams involved." "What about their daughter's condition?" A long pause. "She's stable now, but only after they stopped all treatments from her previous doctor." "Why are you asking about this, Delilah?" "Because I think my daughter might be in danger," Delilah admitted, her voice breaking. "And I need proof before I can do anything about it." Sarah's tone changed immediately. "Give me 24 hours. I'll get you what I can." True to her word, Sarah called back the next day. "I had to pull some strings, but I got access to their full file. Delilah, the Martinez girl, was being given something that made her condition worse, not better. The new hospital found traces of a muscle relaxant in her system, one that would have eventually caused complete respiratory failure." Delilah felt the blood drain from her face. "A muscle relaxant?" "Yes. Someone was deliberately making her paralysis worse while claiming to treat it. The parents are building a case, but they need more evidence. Have there been other cases?" "At least 2 that I know of," Delilah whispered, thinking of Tommy Chen and the Williams baby. "Maybe more." That evening, Dr. Holloway arrived for their scheduled home visit. She frowned at Ranger's deteriorated state as she set up her equipment. "This is becoming ridiculous," she said sharply. "That dog needs to be removed from the house. He's clearly unstable." Marcus stepped forward, his voice tight with controlled anger. "The only thing that seems unstable here is your treatment plan, doctor. Care to explain why other families under your care are having such poor results?" Dr. Holloway's hand trembled slightly as she prepared Celia's injection. "I don't discuss other patients' cases, and I must insist, either the dog goes or I can't continue treatment." "That's not an option," Delilah said firmly, watching Ranger's reaction to the medical supplies. The dog's eyes were fixed on the syringe in Dr. Holloway's hand, a low growl building in his throat. "Then I'll have to terminate Celia's treatment," Dr. Holloway snapped. "I won't risk my professional reputation over your attachment to an unstable animal." "Professional reputation?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Like the reputation you're building with the Martinez family? Or the Williams baby?" Dr. Holloway's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do," Delilah said quietly. "And I think you know exactly why Ranger won't leave Celia's side. What's really in those injections, Doctor?" The room fell silent, except for Ranger's continued growling. Dr. Holloway's hand tightened around the syringe as she looked between them, her polished facade beginning to crack. The tension was broken by Celia's cry from her crib. As they all turned toward the sound, Ranger used the last of his strength to lunge forward, knocking the medical bag from the table. Vials and syringes scattered across the floor, and Dr. Holloway moved quickly to gather them. "Don't touch anything," Marcus ordered, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police." Dr. Holloway straightened, her face hardening. "You have no proof of anything, and by the time you get any, it will be too late for several of my current patients." The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Delilah moved to stand between her and Celia's crib, feeling Ranger press against her legs despite his weakness. "Actually," Delilah said, her nurse's training keeping her voice steady, "we have more proof than you think. And it's not just the police you'll be dealing with." Delilah sat at her kitchen table late into the night, surrounded by medical journals and printouts. Her laptop glowed with dozens of open tabs to medical research databases. The more she dug, the more her stomach twisted with dread. "This doesn't make any sense," she muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. She'd spent hours searching for any trace of Dr. Holloway's claimed research trials. Nothing matched the protocols the doctor had described for Celia's treatment. Ranger lay at her feet, his body pressed against her legs even as he maintained his vigil toward Celia's room. Though exhausted from his self-imposed guard duty, his ears perked up at every small sound from the baby's direction. Delilah reached down to scratch behind his ears. "You knew something was wrong from the start, didn't you, boy?" Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, her former colleague. "Called every major pediatric research center on the East Coast. No one's heard of these trials." Delilah's hand shook as she typed back. "What about the medication combination she's using?" The response came quickly. "That's the weird part. The combinations don't make sense. Some of these drugs shouldn't be used together at all." Marcus came into the kitchen carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one in front of Delilah and peered at her notes. "Find anything?" "Nothing good," Delilah said, taking a grateful sip. "I've checked every legitimate medical database I have access to. There's no record of the research Dr. Holloway claims to be conducting. No trials, no preliminary studies, nothing." Marcus's face darkened. "So she's been lying this whole time?" "It gets worse." Delilah pulled up a spreadsheet she'd created. "I've been analyzing the medication protocols she prescribed. The combinations don't align with any standard medical practices. Some of these drugs could be dangerous when used together." "Jesus," Marcus whispered, sinking into a chair. "What do we do?" Before Delilah could answer, her phone rang. Dr. Holloway's name flashed on the screen. She answered on speakerphone, gesturing for Marcus to stay quiet. "Delilah, I'm concerned about Celia's progress." Dr. Holloway's voice was sharp with artificial worry. "Missing treatments could seriously impact her development. I must insist we resume our regular schedule immediately." "I've been doing some research into the trial protocols," Delilah said carefully. "I'm having trouble finding any documentation about them." There was a pause. When Dr. Holloway spoke again, her tone had shifted. "As I explained, this is cutting-edge research. The documentation is still being processed. Your nursing background, while admirable, doesn't qualify you to evaluate experimental protocols. Actually, it does qualify me to recognize when medication combinations don't make medical sense, Delilah countered, and to know where to look for legitimate research trials. I'm growing very concerned about your resistance to Celia's treatment plan. Dr. Holloway's voice turned cold. As a mandated reporter, I have an obligation to notify Child Protective Services when parents refuse necessary medical care. Marcus started to speak, but Delilah held up her hand. Are you threatening to report us for questioning treatments that have no documented research basis? I'm suggesting that your interference could be seen as medical neglect, Dr. Holloway replied smoothly. Especially given your emotional state and your insistence on keeping that unstable animal in the house. Perhaps the stress of caring for a special needs child is affecting your judgment. Delilah's hand tightened around the phone. My judgment is just fine, doctor. Clear enough to know that something isn't right here. I'll be making some calls tomorrow, Dr. Holloway said. I suggest you reconsider your position before things become complicated. Celia needs consistent care, and I would hate to see her removed from an unstable environment. The line went dead. Marcus slammed his hand on the table, making Ranger jump to his feet despite his weakness. She's trying to blackmail us, he growled, using CPS as a threat to keep us quiet. Delilah was already typing frantically on her laptop. She's desperate. She knows we're close to exposing whatever she's doing. Her email dinged with a message from another colleague at Boston Children's Hospital. The subject line made her heart skip. Holloway Research Grant Applications, Red Flags. The email contained scanned documents showing multiple rejected grant applications from Dr. Holloway over the past 2 years. Each rejection cited methodological concerns and ethical issues with her proposed research. Look at this, Delilah said, turning the screen toward Marcus. She's been trying to get funding for these experiments for years. Every major institution turned her down. So where's she getting the money now? Marcus asked. That's what we need to find out. Delilah opened another email from Sarah containing financial records. She's receiving private funding from somewhere, but it's all through shell companies. Nothing transparent. They worked through the night, piecing together fragments of information. By morning, they had assembled a disturbing picture. Dr. Holloway had been conducting unauthorized experiments on vulnerable children, using combinations of medications that could worsen their conditions while claiming to help them. But why? Marcus asked, staring at their collection of evidence. What could she possibly gain from making sick kids worse? Research data, Delilah said grimly. If she can show dramatic improvements in patients who previously got worse, she could secure millions in grant funding. She just needs enough failed cases to make her eventual breakthrough more impressive. And our daughter was going to be one of those failed cases, Marcus's voice broke. Ranger whined softly, pressing his head against Marcus's leg. Despite his exhaustion, the dog's eyes remained fixed on Celia's room, as if reminding them of his unwavering mission to protect her. Delilah's phone buzzed with another text from Sarah. Hospital Ethics Board wants to meet, bringing evidence tomorrow morning. We need to be careful, Delilah said, showing Marcus the message. If we move too quickly, she might do something desperate. She's already threatening to use CPS against us. So what do? We document everything, Delilah said firmly. Every medication, every visit, every threat. We build an airtight case. She looked down at Ranger, who had finally allowed himself to doze while still maintaining his protective position. And we trust that our guard dog knew what he was warning us about all along. The next morning, Dr. Holloway arrived unannounced, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed around the edges. She carried her medical bag and wore an expression of professional concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I've come to resume Celia's treatments," she announced, brushing past Delilah into the house, "and to discuss my concerns about your recent behavior." Ranger, despite his weakened state, immediately positioned himself between the doctor and Celia's room, his growl low but unmistakable. "Actually," Delilah said, standing her ground, "we need to discuss our concerns about your behavior, doctor, starting with these." She held up printouts of the rejected grant applications. Dr. Holloway's facade cracked slightly. "Where did you get those?" "The same place we got documentation of your other failed cases," Marcus said, emerging from the kitchen with more papers. "And records of your private funding sources." "You have no right to access those records," Dr. Holloway snapped, her professional mask slipping further. "I have every right to investigate treatments being given to my daughter," Delilah countered, "especially when those treatments don't exist in any legitimate medical trial." Dr. Holloway's hand tightened on her medical bag. "You're making a serious mistake. I can have Celia removed from your care with one phone call." "Go ahead," Marcus said. "Call them. Explain why you're threatening parents who discovered your unauthorized drug trials. I'm sure CPS would be very interested in that conversation." Dr. Holloway's face hardened as she reached for her phone. "You're making a terrible mistake." "The only mistake was trusting you," Delilah said firmly. She glanced at Marcus, who nodded and quietly slipped away to their home office. They had prepared for this moment. "While you make that call," Delilah continued, "I'd like to show you something interesting about Celia's medication." She pulled out several sealed vials of the experimental treatment that she had carefully collected over the past weeks. Dr. Holloway's eyes widened slightly. "Where did you get those?" the doctor demanded, her voice sharp. "I kept samples," Delilah explained. "It's what any responsible nurse would do when administering experimental medication. And yesterday, I had them tested at an independent laboratory." Dr. Holloway's hand trembled slightly as she lowered her phone. "You had no right." "I had every right," Delilah cut in. "These samples contain a toxic cocktail of chemicals designed to cause nerve damage and muscle deterioration. You've been poisoning my daughter." The words hung in the air between them. Ranger, still positioned protectively near Celia's room, let out a low growl. "That's why he's been acting this way," Delilah continued, gesturing to the German Shepherd. "He was trained in chemical detection during his military service. He knew these medications were dangerous from the very first day." Dr. Holloway's professional facade crumbled completely. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Delilah interrupted, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "The lab found traces of neurotoxins that specifically target nerve endings. Combined with muscle relaxants and other compounds, they create a perfect storm of deterioration that looks like natural progression of the condition." Marcus returned with a stack of papers, copies of their evidence, including the lab results. "We've documented everything," he said. "Every visit, every treatment, every threatening phone call. And now we have proof of what's in these medications." "The timing finally makes sense," Delilah added. "Ranger would become most agitated during treatments and around the medical equipment. His behavior wasn't stress or protectiveness. It was his training kicking in. He was trying to warn us about the chemical threat." Despite his weakened state from weeks of refusing to leave Celia's side, Ranger stood firm, his dark eyes fixed on Dr. Holloway. The doctor's polished appearance had completely dissolved, replaced by barely concealed panic. "You're systematically poisoning children," Delilah continued, her nurse's training helping her maintain composure despite her horror. "Making them worse so you can later claim breakthrough improvements with some miracle cure. How many families have you destroyed to secure your research funding?" "You don't understand the pressure," Dr. Holloway burst out. "The grants, the publications needed for tenure, my reputation in the field. I just needed enough cases to prove the effectiveness of my real treatment. By poisoning babies? Marcus's voice was thick with disgust. Creating victims so you could swoop in and save them? The damage would have been temporary, Doctor. Holloway protested weakly. Once I secured the funding— Temporary? Delilah pulled out more lab results. These compounds cause permanent nerve damage. The children you've been poisoning will never fully recover. She stepped closer to the doctor, her voice low and dangerous. How many families have you done this to? How many children have you crippled for life? Dr. Holloway's hand tightened on her medical bag. You can't prove any of this. It's your word against mine. A respected specialist versus overwrought parents. Who do you think they'll believe? They'll believe the evidence, Marcus said, holding up their documentation. The lab results, the financial records, the pattern of declining patients. It's all here. And they'll believe them, Delilah added, nodding toward the front window, where several cars were pulling into their driveway. The hospital ethics board, the medical board investigators, and the police. Dr. Holloway lunged for her medical bag, but Ranger was faster. Despite his exhaustion, the German Shepherd sprang forward, knocking the bag from her hands. Vials and syringes scattered across the floor as police officers entered the house. Dr. Vivian Holloway, one officer announced, we have a warrant for your arrest on multiple counts of child endangerment and medical fraud. As the officers led Dr. Holloway away in handcuffs, Delilah sank to her knees beside Ranger, wrapping her arms around the loyal dog who had tried so hard to protect them. You knew all along, she whispered into his fur. You were trying to tell us about the poison, weren't you? Ranger licked her face once, then immediately returned to his post outside Celia's room, though his posture was notably more relaxed now that the threat had been removed. The medical board investigators carefully collected the scattered vials and syringes as evidence. Sarah, Delilah's colleague who had helped gather the documentation, arrived with a pediatric toxicologist to begin assessing Celia's condition. We'll need to test all her current medications, the toxicologist explained, and begin a careful detox protocol. The sooner we get these compounds out of her system, the better chance we have of preventing further damage. Delilah nodded, her medical training helping her focus on the immediate needs rather than the overwhelming emotions threatening to surface. What about the other families? The other children? The hospital is contacting everyone who is under Dr. Holloway's care, Sarah assured her. They're setting up a special unit to evaluate and treat all potential victims. Marcus brought Celia out from her room, cradling their daughter protectively. Ranger finally left his post to walk beside them, his tail wagging gently as he watched over his small charge. How could we have missed this? Marcus asked softly, looking down at their baby. How did we not see what she was doing? We didn't miss it, Delilah replied, reaching out to stroke Ranger's head. He saw it from the very beginning. We just needed time to understand what he was trying to tell us. The German Shepherd pressed against her leg, his military training and protective instincts having served his new family in a way none of them could have anticipated. Thanks to him, they had discovered the truth before Dr. Holloway's poisonous treatments could cause permanent damage to Celia. Delilah's hands shook as she spread the lab reports across the kitchen table. Marcus leaned forward, his weathered face creased with concern as he studied the technical documents. I can barely make sense of these medical terms, he admitted, running a calloused hand through his hair. Break it down for me, honey. What exactly are we looking at? Delilah took a deep breath, her nursing training helping her organize the horrifying information. These compounds shouldn't be anywhere near our daughter. They're designed to attack nerve endings and break down muscle tissue. Every treatment has been slowly poisoning her. Marcus's face darkened with rage. That woman has been deliberately hurting our baby? Not just our baby, Delilah said quietly. She pulled out more papers, medical records she'd carefully gathered through her hospital contacts. I found a pattern. Every child under Dr. Holloway's care shows the same progression. They all get worse, not better. Their conditions deteriorate far faster than they should. But why? Marcus demanded, his voice rough with emotion. What could she possibly gain from hurting disabled children? Delilah spread out another set of documents, grant applications and research proposals she'd discovered. Money, recognition, power. Her voice trembled with disgust. She's creating severe cases so she can study them, document them, publish groundbreaking research about extreme spinal injuries in infants. Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. She's manufacturing test subjects. Exactly. There's a major research grant available, millions of dollars for breakthrough studies in pediatric spinal cord injuries. But she needed enough severe cases to make her research significant. Delilah's professional composure cracked slightly. She's poisoning children to create her own test group. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing the kitchen. We have to stop her. We have to tell someone. We will, Delilah assured him, but we have to be careful. She's respected in the medical community. We need absolute proof before we make accusations. We have the lab results, Marcus pointed out. We need more. We need to document everything, every visit, every treatment, every change in Celia's condition. And we need to figure out how to protect the other families. Delilah gathered the papers with trembling hands. There are at least 6 other children currently under her care. Ranger, who had been lying alertly near Celia's room, suddenly raised his head and growled. Moments later, they heard a car door slam outside. No, Delilah whispered, rushing to the window. It's her. She's not supposed to be here until tomorrow. Dr. Holloway was walking briskly up their driveway, medical bag in hand. Marcus quickly helped Delilah gather the incriminating documents while Ranger positioned himself in front of Celia's door, his posture rigid and defensive. The doorbell rang, and Dr. Holloway's voice called out with false cheerfulness. Emergency visit. I've been reviewing Celia's charts, and we need to adjust her treatment immediately. Marcus and Delilah exchanged alarmed looks. They weren't ready. They didn't have all their evidence organized, but they couldn't risk another treatment session. Coming, Delilah called out, trying to keep her voice steady. She whispered to Marcus, get the camera ready. Document everything. When they opened the door, Dr. Holloway swept in with her usual professional confidence. I'm so glad you're home. I've been quite concerned about Celia's latest test results. We need to increase her medication dosage right away. For the first time, Delilah could see through the polished facade. She noticed the slight tremor in Dr. Holloway's hands, the desperate edge to her smile. This woman had been slowly poisoning their daughter, all while maintaining this caring pretense. Actually, Doctor, Delilah said carefully, we'd like to discuss Celia's treatment plan first. There's no time for discussion, Dr. Holloway insisted, moving toward Celia's room. The deterioration is progressing faster than expected. We need to intervene now. Ranger's growl stopped her in her tracks. The German shepherd stood firmly between Dr. Holloway and Celia's door, his teeth bared for the first time since joining their family. His military training was evident in his stance. This wasn't the reaction of a protective pet, but the calculated response of a trained guardian detecting a threat. Your dog seems agitated, Dr. Holloway said smoothly, though she took a step back. Perhaps we should have him removed while I treat Celia. He's not agitated, Marcus said firmly. He's doing exactly what he was trained to do, protecting our daughter from chemical threats. Dr. Holloway's practiced smile faltered slightly. I don't understand what you're implying. I think you do, Delilah replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We know what's in those treatments, Doctor. We know what you've been doing to our daughter, to all those children." "You're being ridiculous," Dr. Holloway scoffed, but her hand tightened on her medical bag. "I'm trying to help these children. My research could revolutionize treatment for pediatric spinal injuries." "Your research is fraudulent," Delilah countered. "You're creating severe cases to study, poisoning children so you can document their decline and secure your grant money." Dr. Holloway's professional mask cracked completely, revealing a glimpse of the desperate woman beneath. "You don't understand the pressure in this field. The competition for funding. I needed significant cases to study. The children would have recovered eventually." "Eventually?" Marcus's voice shook with rage. "You're talking about deliberately harming babies." "It was necessary," Dr. Holloway snapped. "Do you know how hard it is to get research funding, to maintain standing in the medical community? I needed those grant dollars. I needed the recognition. These children were already damaged. I just made their conditions more suitable for study." Ranger's growl deepened as Dr. Holloway's true nature emerged. The doctor glanced nervously at the German shepherd, then back at Delilah and Marcus. "You can't prove any of this," she said, attempting to regain her composure. "Who would believe you over me? I'm a respected specialist. You're just worried parents overreacting to normal treatment complications." "We have proof," Delilah replied quietly. "Lab results showing exactly what's in your treatments. Documentation of the pattern of decline in your patients. Financial records linking you to the grant applications." Dr. Holloway's face went pale. "You had no right to investigate me." "We had every right," Marcus growled. "You've been poisoning our daughter." The doctor's hand moved toward her medical bag, but Ranger's aggressive bark stopped her. The German shepherd's military training was fully evident now as he maintained his protective position, ready to prevent any threat to Celia. Dr. Holloway's polished facade crumbled further as she clutched her designer handbag with trembling fingers. "You don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "I had no choice. The debts kept piling up. The casino markers, the credit cards, everything. My husband was going to leave me." Delilah felt her stomach turn as the truth spilled out. The respected doctor's eyes had a wild, desperate quality now. "So you decided to poison innocent children?" Marcus demanded, positioning himself protectively near Celia's doorway alongside Ranger. "It wasn't like that at first," Dr. Holloway insisted, pacing frantically. "I just needed the research grant. If I could document enough severe cases, prove I was making breakthrough discoveries about spinal cord deterioration, the funding would solve everything. My marriage, my debts, my reputation, I could fix it all." "By deliberately harming babies." Delilah's voice shook with rage. "How many families have you destroyed?" "They were already damaged," Dr. Holloway snapped, her carefully maintained professional demeanor completely gone. "I just accelerated their decline. For research purposes, the grant committee needed significant results, and the casino wanted their money. I had to do something." She ran her manicured fingers through her perfectly styled hair, destroying the careful arrangement. "You have no idea what it's like, watching everything slip away. My husband threatening divorce, the loan sharks calling, my colleagues questioning my lack of published research." Her laugh had an hysterical edge. "But I found a solution. These children were already facing challenges. I just made their cases more scientifically valuable." "You're sick," Marcus growled, his hands clenched into fists. Dr. Holloway's expression hardened. "I'm practical, and you two are being very impractical right now." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder. "I've documented months of parental negligence in Celia's case. Missed appointments, refused treatments, dangerous home conditions. Who do you think Child Services will believe? Grieving, overwhelmed parents, or a respected pediatric specialist?" Delilah felt her blood run cold. "You're threatening us." "I'm giving you a choice, Doctor," Holloway replied, her voice eerily calm. "Let me administer this emergency treatment to Celia, and all these concerning reports disappear. Fight me, and you'll lose everything. Your daughter, your reputation, maybe even your freedom." "You won't touch our daughter," Marcus declared firmly. Dr. Holloway's hand plunged into her medical bag, emerging with a loaded syringe. "This dose will ensure Celia qualifies for my research protocol. One quick injection, and all our problems are solved. The grant committee will have their severe case study, and you'll keep your daughter. Though she'll need much more intensive care, of course." Ranger's threatening growl deepened as the doctor took a step forward. His military training had clearly identified both the chemical threat and the doctor's aggressive posture. "The medication in that syringe," Delilah said, her nursing knowledge helping her recognize the size of the dose. "It's enough to cause permanent damage, isn't it?" "Total paralysis," Dr. Holloway confirmed with disturbing professional detachment. "The perfect research subject. And since I've documented your history of interference with her treatment plan, no one will question the decline." She took another step toward Celia's room, but Ranger moved to intercept, his teeth bared. The doctor pulled back slightly, frustration crossing her face. "That dog has been a problem from the start," she snapped. "His chemical detection training nearly ruined everything. Do you know how carefully I had to adjust the dosages to avoid setting off his military instincts? But this ends today. Move him, or I'll call animal control and report him as a dangerous animal." "He's not the dangerous one here," Marcus replied coldly. Dr. Holloway's desperation peaked. "You don't understand. I need this case. The grant committee meets next week. The casino wants their money. My husband's lawyer is preparing divorce papers. I have to prove my research is valuable." With shocking speed, she lunged toward Celia's room, syringe extended. But Ranger was faster, years of military training launching him into action. He caught the doctor's arm in his powerful jaws, applying just enough pressure to make her drop the syringe without breaking skin, exactly as he'd been trained. Dr. Holloway screamed in outrage and fear as Marcus quickly kicked the syringe away from her reach. Delilah had her phone out, already recording the doctor's confession and attempted assault. "It's over," Delilah said firmly. "We have everything we need. The lab results proving what's in your treatments, documentation of other victims, financial records linking you to the research grants, and now this confession and assault attempt. You're finished." "You can't do this to me," Dr. Holloway pleaded, her confident facade completely shattered. "I'll lose everything. My license, my practice, my freedom. Please, I can make this right. I can help Celia recover. I know how to reverse the damage." "The only thing you know how to do is hurt innocent children," Marcus replied grimly. "And that stops today." Ranger maintained his hold on the doctor's arm as Delilah called the police. Dr. Holloway had collapsed into sobs, all pretense of professional composure abandoned as she begged and threatened alternately. "You're ruining everything," she wailed. "I just needed more time, more severe cases to study. The grant would have solved everything. My research could have been groundbreaking. I could have paid my debts. My husband would have stayed." But her pleas fell on deaf ears as Delilah and Marcus stood firm, protecting their daughter from the desperate woman who had betrayed so many families' trust. They could hear police sirens approaching in the distance, signaling the end of Dr. Holloway's horrific scheme. The events unfolded with terrifying speed. As Dr. Holloway lunged toward Celia's room with the loaded syringe, Ranger's military training took over completely. The German Shepherd launched himself through the air with explosive force, his powerful body connecting with the doctor's chest. The impact sent both of them crashing to the ground, the syringe skittering across the hardwood floor and under a cabinet. Dr. Holloway screamed in rage and fear as Ranger pinned her down, his teeth bared but not biting, his training ensuring he used only the force necessary to subdue. But the doctor wasn't finished. Her manicured hand shot out toward her fallen medical bag, fingers wrapping around something metallic. "Watch out!" Marcus shouted, but it was too late. The scalpel blade flashed in the overhead light as Dr. Holloway slashed wildly at Ranger. The dog yelped in pain as the sharp edge caught him across the shoulder, leaving a deep gash in his gray-flecked fur. Blood immediately began matting his coat, but Ranger held his position, protecting the path to Celia's room. "Get away from me!" Dr. Holloway shrieked, slashing again. This time the blade caught Ranger's front leg, causing him to stumble slightly, but not retreat. Delilah rushed forward to help the injured dog, but Dr. Holloway's desperate swings with the scalpel forced her back. The blade caught Delilah's forearm, leaving a burning line of pain and a spreading crimson stain on her sleeve. "You're all ruining everything!" the doctor screamed. Her perfectly styled hair now wild around her face, her expensive clothes disheveled as she scrambled backward on the floor. "I won't let you destroy my life's work!" Despite his injuries, Ranger maintained his protective stance between the doctor and Celia's room, blood dripping steadily from his wounds. His military training was evident in every movement. Even injured, he wouldn't abandon his post protecting the vulnerable child. Dr. Holloway's eyes darted frantically around the room, desperation clear in every movement. Her gaze locked onto her fallen medical bag, still containing the damning evidence of her crimes. With surprising agility, she lunged for it. "Stop her!" Marcus yelled, moving to intercept, but he was too far away. The doctor reached the bag and yanked it open, pulling out a stack of folders filled with her falsified research data and records of other victims. Her hands trembled as she pulled something else from the bottom, a small lighter. "If I can't have my research, no one can," she declared, flicking the lighter to life. Before anyone could stop her, she touched the flame to the edge of the papers. The documents caught quickly, flames crawling up the edges of her fraudulent research. Dr. Holloway dumped the burning papers back into her leather medical bag, creating a growing inferno that began consuming the evidence of her crimes. Despite his injuries, Ranger sprang into action again. The dog's military training had included fire response, and he recognized the immediate danger to everyone in the house, especially Celia. He charged forward, ignoring the pain from his wounds, and clamped his jaws around Dr. Holloway's arm that still held the scalpel. The doctor screamed and dropped the weapon, but the fire was already spreading from her bag to the nearby curtains. Smoke began filling the room as Delilah pressed her injured arm against her chest and rushed to Celia's room, knowing they needed to get the baby out immediately. "Marcus, help me with Celia," she called out, coughing as the smoke thickened. But Dr. Holloway wasn't finished. She kicked out violently at Ranger, catching him in his wounded shoulder. The dog released her arm with a yelp of pain, but quickly repositioned himself to block her path again, leaving bloody paw prints on the floor. "You stupid animal," she snarled, blood running down her arm where Ranger had grabbed her. "You've ruined everything. My research, my reputation, my life." The flames were growing larger now, feeding on the curtains and beginning to lick at the walls. The smoke detector began its shrill warning as thick gray clouds rolled across the ceiling. Through it all, Ranger stood his ground, injured but unflinching, protecting the family he'd sworn to serve. Delilah emerged from Celia's room with the baby clutched tightly to her chest, Marcus right behind her with the portable oxygen tank and essential medical supplies. Dr. Holloway saw them and made one last desperate lunge toward them, hands outstretched like claws. Ranger intercepted her again, this time catching her lab coat in his teeth and pulling her away from the family. The doctor stumbled and fell, hitting her head against the wall with a solid thunk. She slumped to the floor, dazed but still conscious, as flames continued consuming her medical bag and the evidence it contained. "We need to get out," Marcus shouted over the sound of crackling flames and the smoke detector's piercing alarm. "The fire department is on their way." Delilah clutched Celia closer, shielding the baby's face from the smoke with her body. Her injured arm throbbed, blood soaking her sleeve, but her only thought was protecting her daughter. Ranger limped to her side, still alert despite his wounds, ready to defend them if Dr. Holloway made another move. The doctor lay against the wall, watching her life's work burn, her perfectly maintained facade completely shattered. Blood trickled from where she'd hit her head, mixing with her tears as she stared at the flames consuming her fraudulent research and the evidence that could have saved her career and marriage. Through the thickening smoke, they could hear approaching sirens, fire trucks, and police responding to their emergency calls. The acrid smell of burning leather and paper filled the air as Dr. Holloway's medical bag continued to burn, years of falsified research and evidence of her crimes turning to ash before their eyes. Marcus pulled into the driveway after his construction site visit, immediately noticing something was wrong. Smoke drifted from beneath the front door, and he could hear the piercing wail of the smoke detector inside. His heart jumped into his throat as he sprinted toward the house. He burst through the door into chaos. Thick smoke filled the air, stemming from Dr. Holloway's burning medical bag near the living room wall. The acrid smell of burning leather and paper stung his nostrils. His eyes widened in horror as he took in the scene before him. Delilah's sleeve was soaked with blood. Ranger lay wounded on the floor, still guarding Celia's room. And Dr. Holloway was scrambling toward the front door with wild eyes. "Stop her!" Delilah shouted, clutching her injured arm. Marcus's construction worker reflexes kicked in. He stepped into Dr. Holloway's path, his broad frame blocking the doorway. The doctor tried to dodge around him, but he caught her arm firmly. "Let me go!" she shrieked, clawing at his grip with her free hand. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand plenty," Marcus growled, maintaining his hold despite her struggles. "You tried to hurt my family." Delilah had already grabbed zip ties from the kitchen drawer, a habit from her nursing days of always keeping medical supplies handy. She rushed over, fighting through the pain in her arm, to help Marcus secure Dr. Holloway's hands behind her back. The doctor slumped in defeat as they fastened the restraints, but the immediate danger wasn't over. The flames from her medical bag had reached the curtains and were now crawling up the wall toward the ceiling. Dark smoke billowed thicker by the second. "Call 911!" Marcus ordered, already moving toward the spreading fire. He grabbed the fire extinguisher they kept in the kitchen and began battling the flames. But the burning medical bag was proving difficult to extinguish. The leather exterior seemed to protect the burning contents inside, creating a dangerous source of fuel. Delilah pulled out her phone with shaking hands, quickly dialing emergency services. "This is Delilah Brennan at 423 Oak Street," she reported, her nurse's training helping her stay calm. "We need police and fire immediately. We have an attempted assault with a deadly weapon, medical malpractice crimes, and a growing house fire." She quickly detailed Dr. Holloway's crimes and their current situation. While she made the call, she knelt beside Ranger. The loyal German shepherd lay bleeding from 2 deep cuts, but refused to move from his protective position near Celia's room. His military training was evident even now. Despite his injuries, he remained focused on his mission to guard the baby. "Good boy," Delilah whispered, pressing a clean towel against his shoulder wound. "You saved us. You saved Celia." Ranger's tail thumped weakly against the floor, but his eyes remained alert, watching Dr. Holloway, even as Delilah worked to slow his bleeding. The smoke was getting thicker. Marcus had managed to contain the worst of the flames, but the fire still smoldered stubbornly in pockets, sending dangerous fumes through the house. They could hear sirens in the distance, but they weren't close enough yet. "We need to get out now," Marcus called, coughing from the smoke. The fire's too close to Celia's room. Delilah nodded, moving quickly to gather Celia's essential medical supplies: oxygen tank, medication, and emergency equipment. Marcus helped her, years of living with a special needs child having taught them both exactly what was critical to take. But when they tried to help Ranger stand, the dog whimpered in pain. The cut on his leg was deep, making it difficult for him to walk. Still, he struggled to his feet, determined to stay between Dr. Holloway and the family. "Come on, boy," Marcus encouraged, supporting some of the dog's weight. "We've got to move." Dr. Holloway watched them from where she sat restrained, her perfectly styled hair now wild around her face. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I needed that research. The grants would have solved everything. My debts, my marriage, my reputation." "By poisoning innocent children," Delilah snapped, carefully lifting Celia from her crib. "By trying to permanently disable my daughter." The doctor's face crumpled. "I never meant for it to go this far. The gambling debts just kept growing. The research grants were my only way out." The smoke detector's shrill warning grew more urgent as the air thickened. Marcus helped Ranger limp toward the door while Delilah carried Celia, keeping the baby's face covered to protect her from the smoke. They could see flashing lights approaching through the windows. Help was almost there. "Move," Marcus ordered Dr. Holloway, helping her stand. They couldn't leave her in the burning house, no matter what she'd done. They made their way outside just as the first fire truck rounded the corner. 2 police cars followed close behind, lights flashing and sirens wailing. The fresh air was a relief after the smoky interior, but Ranger's condition was deteriorating. The proud German shepherd collapsed on the front lawn, his fur matted with blood, though his eyes still tracked Dr. Holloway's every movement. Delilah handed Celia to Marcus and immediately began applying pressure to Ranger's wounds, her nursing training taking over. "Stay with us, boy," she pleaded. "You're our hero. Celia needs you." Police officers rushed forward to secure Dr. Holloway, while firefighters deployed their hoses. Paramedics approached to treat Delilah's arm and Ranger's injuries. Through it all, the German shepherd maintained his protective watch over the family, refusing to rest until he was certain Dr. Holloway no longer posed a threat. Marcus held Celia close, watching as emergency responders took control of the scene. The baby seemed calm despite the chaos, soothed by her father's strong arms. He looked at his wounded wife, their injured dog, and the smoldering house, realizing how close they'd come to losing everything. If it hadn't been for Ranger's military training and protective instincts, Dr. Holloway might have succeeded in her desperate plan. The paramedics worked quickly to stabilize Ranger for transport to the emergency veterinary hospital. Despite his injuries, the loyal dog's main concern remained the family's safety. His training had prepared him to protect them at any cost, and he had fulfilled that duty without hesitation. As emergency vehicles converged on their front lawn, the family's escape from the burning house became a carefully coordinated effort. Marcus kept a firm grip on Dr. Holloway's restraints, while firefighters in full gear rushed past them toward the growing blaze. The doctor tried one last desperate attempt to control the narrative. "This is all a terrible misunderstanding," she called out to the approaching police officers, her polished professional demeanor cracking. "I was trying to help them. The fire was an accident during a routine treatment session." Delilah, still pressing a bandage against Ranger's wounds, looked up with fierce determination. "Check her medical bag. What's left of it? She was burning evidence of what she's done to multiple children." 2 officers quickly secured Dr. Holloway, taking her from Marcus's grip and leading her toward a waiting patrol car. The doctor's expensive jewelry caught the flashing emergency lights as she continued protesting. "I'm a respected pediatric specialist. These are false accusations from an overwhelmed family." "The evidence isn't false," Delilah countered, her nurse's training evident in her clear, authoritative tone. She nodded toward her car. "In my trunk, there's a locked medical cooler containing samples of the medication she's been giving my daughter. It's not treatment, it's poison designed to cause nerve damage. I've documented everything, including chemical analysis results." A detective who had just arrived on scene directed an officer to secure the cooler, while paramedics finally convinced Delilah to let them examine her arm. The cut from Dr. Holloway's scalpel was deep, requiring immediate attention. Ranger, despite his own serious injuries, growled softly when the paramedics approached Delilah. His military training kept him focused on protecting the family, even as his strength faded. The emergency veterinary team had to work around his determination to keep Dr. Holloway in his sight. "It's okay, boy," Marcus soothed, still holding Celia safely. "You can rest now. You did your job. You kept us safe." The German shepherd's tail wagged weakly, but his eyes remained alert until police officers finally placed Dr. Holloway in the back of their patrol car. Only then did he allow the veterinary team to lift him onto a stretcher, though he whined anxiously when they moved him away from Celia. Inside the house, firefighters had contained the blaze, preventing it from reaching Celia's room. A fire investigator carefully sifted through the remains of Dr. Holloway's medical bag, finding partially burned documents that survived the flames. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. "We're finding records of at least 6 other children," the detective reported, examining the charred papers. "All patients with mobility issues, all showing mysterious deterioration under Dr. Holloway's care. There are grant applications here too, using their worsening conditions as research data." Delilah nodded grimly as a paramedic bandaged her arm. She was deliberately harming them to secure research funding, using their suffering to advance her career and pay off gambling debts. The detective's face hardened as he read through more documents. "This goes beyond medical malpractice. We're looking at multiple counts of aggravated assault on vulnerable children, fraud, and attempted murder when she attacked you today." Emergency crews worked efficiently around them. Firefighters ensured no hotspots remained in the house, while crime scene investigators photographed and collected evidence. The veterinary team stabilized Ranger for transport, praising his bravery and remarkable protective instincts. "His chemical detection training saved Celia's life," Marcus said, watching as they loaded the injured dog into their vehicle. He knew something was wrong with those medications from the very first day. Police officers gathered statements from the family, while paramedics checked Celia for any smoke exposure. The baby remained remarkably calm throughout the chaos, as if somehow understanding that her protector had kept her safe from harm. From the back of the patrol car, Dr. Holloway watched her carefully constructed world crumble. Her reputation as a caring specialist, her fraudulent research, her desperate scheme to solve her personal problems, all exposed because she hadn't accounted for a retired military dog's ability to detect her poison medications. The detective closed his notebook after taking detailed statements. "We'll need you both to come down to the station once things are settled here. Between your evidence and what we've recovered, we can make sure she never harms another child." 3 months after the fire, Delilah and Marcus sat in the crowded courtroom, holding hands as the judge prepared to deliver Dr. Holloway's sentence. The trial had revealed the full scope of her crimes, not just the 6 children initially discovered, but 32 young victims across 3 different medical facilities. The defendant's actions represent an unconscionable breach of medical ethics and human decency, the judge declared, his voice stern. By deliberately harming children entrusted to her care, Dr. Vivian Holloway has committed crimes that demand the most serious consequences. Dr. Holloway stood at the defendant's table, her once perfect appearance now disheveled, her expensive jewelry replaced by prison attire. The judge continued reading the lengthy list of charges. Multiple counts of child endangerment, attempted murder, medical fraud, and assault. The sentence, 45 years in prison without possibility of parole. Outside the courthouse, Delilah knelt beside Ranger, who wore his new therapy dog certification vest proudly. His scars from the attack had healed, though silver streaks now marked his dark fur where Dr. Holloway's scalpel had struck. The German Shepherd's military unit had awarded him a special commendation for his heroic actions, and his former handler had traveled to attend both the ceremony and the trial. You know, most chemical detection dogs lose their edge after retiring, the handler had told them during the ceremony. But Ranger's instincts stayed sharp enough to save your daughter's life. That's 1 in a million. At home, Celia's new physical therapist, thoroughly vetted by both the hospital and Ranger, worked with the 8-month-old baby on muscle-strengthening exercises. Without Dr. Holloway's poisonous interventions, Celia's natural resilience began to shine through. She showed promising signs of increased leg movement, her determined spirit matching Ranger's protective devotion. The crisis had transformed Marcus and Delilah's relationship. Where there had once been tension over medical decisions, there was now absolute trust in each other's instincts. Their shared trauma and triumph had forged a deeper understanding between them. I should have listened to your concerns about Dr. Holloway sooner, Delilah admitted one evening as they watched Ranger sleeping beside Celia's crib. Your gut feeling was right from the start. Marcus wrapped his arm around her shoulders. We both wanted to believe in the expert, but now we know. Sometimes the best medical insights come from a dog with a good nose and a brave heart. The investigation had led to a complete overhaul of pediatric care protocols at several hospitals. Delilah's careful documentation of Dr. Holloway's methods helped create new safeguards to prevent similar crimes. Other families affected by Dr. Holloway's actions found hope in seeing justice served, and a support group formed to help them cope with the trauma and celebrate their children's recoveries. Ranger's story spread through the military working dog community, leading to new programs pairing retired detection dogs with families of medically vulnerable children. His gentle nature with Celia, combined with his protective instincts, made him the perfect ambassador for these initiatives. The family's testimony at the trial had been powerful, not just in convicting Dr. Holloway, but in helping other families find closure. Delilah's medical expertise had proven crucial in explaining to the jury exactly how the doctor had manipulated treatments to harm her patients, while maintaining a facade of professional care. As Celia grew stronger each day, her laugh became the soundtrack of their healing home. Ranger remained her constant companion, his therapy dog certification making him an official part of her medical care team. The bond between the retired military dog and the resilient baby girl stood as a testament to the unexpected ways love and protection could manifest. Thank you for watching. If even one moment stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow with another story that speaks to the heart.